Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas and his sketchy financial disclosures continue to be headline news. But we're about to report an amazing additional dimension to the story that might outrage you even more and may well shed new light on the increasingly suspicious and corrupt inner circle of America's most notorious gift-grifting judge. But before we get to that, let's look at what we know so far. We know the Honorable Judge recently found himself in hot water for conflict of interest issues, well, no further away than his insurrectionist wife and free luxury RV co-pilot, Ginny Thomas.
One of his passions is this 40-foot-long motorhome that he and his wife use to explore the United States in their downtime.
You find this relaxing?
Oh, yeah. It's away from the sort of the meanness that you see in Washington. You get here with just the regular folks, and it's so pleasant.
Just the other day, Thomas disclosed a reporting oversight that included many lavish luxuries, such as a trip to Bali that the judge and Mrs. Thomas took with their dear friend Harlan Crow and his wife. And while there's plenty of speculation about Clarence Thomas's susceptibility to influence and how he might peddle that influence from, say, the bench, in a few minutes we'll add another crease to that row by revealing an especially seedy and unsavory side of Clarence Thomas's kith and kin, the people he calls friends. Let's start by taking a quick look at just what transpired this week involving Clarence Thomas and his BFF, Harlan Crow.
This Clarence Thomas officially acknowledging trips paid for by a Republican mega donor back in 2019, including a vacation to Bali. Other justices disclosing gifts as well. Here's our Chief Justice correspondent, Pierre Thomas, now.
Tonight, for the first time, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas formally disclosing lavish trips valued in thousands of dollars and paid for by billionaire and major GOP donor Harlan Crow. They included stays at a resort in Bali and the renowned Bohemian Grove Club in Monterey, California. Thomas says these were simply gifts that were personal hospitality from a friend, and he inadvertently omitted them from financial disclosure forms as required by law.
Inadvertently omitted them as is required by law. Well, that's just a mere oversight, I guess, by a Supreme Court justice. Now, that suggests one of two things. Either he's a sloppy judge, or maybe there's a different reason he forgot to cite them. Well, as the old saying goes, let's follow the money. Who is Harlan Crow, after all? Harlan Crow would very much wish you didn't know. He is the demure and darling billionaire pal of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. So let's take a look at who Harlan Crow really is and why such a great guy to pal around with wants to badly shun the spotlight. And then there's that twist to the story that might just turn your stomach.
The GOP donor who gave gifts and paid for luxury vacations for Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas says he would rather not talk about his relationship to the justice at all. In an interview with The Atlantic, Texas real estate billionaire Harlan Crow says he hopes, quote, "This is my last conversation I have on this topic in public," and that he can just go back to being just an old guy. As we've reported, Crow last week refused to give Senate Democrats information on his ties to Justice Thomas. He argues they lack the authority to investigate his personal friendship with the justice. For more on this, I'm joined by the author of that piece we mentioned, Graham Wood. Graham, it's good to be with you. Thank you for coming in. What stood out to you, just in a basic sense, from your conversation with Crow?
I was just shocked at how little Crow understood how much scrutiny his friend was going to get him. This is going to change the first line of his obituary. It's going to change what people remember about Harlan Crow. He wants to be an ordinary guy, a Texas multimillionaire, and people will remember him instead as being the guy who maybe corrupted a Supreme Court justice.
A Supreme Court justice who will render decisions in the next few weeks that will profoundly affect each and every one of us. So why would these delightful gifts and memorable excursions on private planes and super yachts be so easily forgotten? Well, here comes the part that might make you queasy. There is someone else in Harlan Crow's private by invitation only world that might just explain why he shuns the spotlight and why his pal might conveniently overlook his generosity to keep him out of that spotlight. But in fact, it's all backfiring, because now a very big spotlight is cast on Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, his insurrectionist wife and dedicated traveling companion, and Harlan Crow, his brother from another mother. Well, That brings us to the ugly part. Harlan Crow's real-life brother and EarthX founder, Trammell Crow. Let's have a look.
My vote still counts. But it's the money part that's the problem. The political industry is based on money and power. Both sides are guilty, and I guess that makes me guilty too.
And he's not just politically savvy, he's also facing charges and a trial for alleged sex trafficking. Bloomberg News reported in November of 2023, Trammell Crow Jr., a Texas philanthropist and the brother of Republican megadonor Harlan Crow, must face a lawsuit that accuses him of running and participating in a sex trafficking ring, a judge ruled. 2 women claim they were drugged, physically abused, threatened, and forced to perform sex acts, and that Crow played a key role in providing financing for that scheme. Now, if the roles were reversed, Republicans would be screaming something like Pizzagate. Under the circumstances, this actually seems to have more substance than that. So, as Clarence Thomas cavorts with his pals, despite numerous calls over the years to resign, let's keep an eye on the prize, or in this case, prizes, and the kinds of folks our Supreme Court Justice calls friends and feels is worthy of his valuable time.